So, like one of the arguments that I keep hearing is that Islam got God's name wrong, that Allah is not the name of God, but rather Yahweh is the name of the God of the Bible. Well, there's a reason why, like I said many videos before, there's a reason why Islam does not mention, or the Quran does not mention Yahweh as the name of God, but I want to focus on scholarship. Now, this is Yahweh. What you see on the screen, that's Yahweh right there. It says the Dutch historian of religion Cornelius Thiele, who studied the Sashu, proposed that the worship of Yahweh did not originate in the land of Canaan, as described in the Bible, but was adopted by the Proto-Israelites through sustained contact with the inhabitants of the Arabian Peninsula. It says his hypothesis is not just supported by the archaeological evidence. In Exodus, Yahweh reveals himself to Moses while the latter is in the company of the nomadic Kenites. So, we see here that Yahweh is the name of a pagan god. If you just read this book, The Origins of Judaism, he goes into further explanation of how Yahweh is not the name or is the name of a pagan god. We see that Yahweh was one God among many. Yahweh worship also has its roots in ancient religion of Canaan, which is the land which God promised Abraham. Within this polytheistic religion, Yahweh was but one. This is the important part. Within this polytheistic religion, Yahweh was but one of the many deities united under a figure known as El. Uh, Further down, I'm just trying to get to the important parts. I'm trying to keep this video as short as possible. It says these lesser gods included Yahweh, Ashura, El's consort, as well as the chief, as the religion's chief mother goddess, and Baal, whose worshippers went on to challenge Yahweh's supremacy in Israel. Yahweh and Baal were merely two. Okay, now this is the very important part. Yahweh and Baal were merely two of El's children. So Yahweh was definitely a pagan god, or the name of a pagan god in Arabia or Canaan. It says Baal ruled over Canaan while Yahweh faithfully was assigned to the land of Israel. So it looks like the Israelites took that name Yahweh from either a Canaan, ancient Canaan, or an ancient Median. Median was an Arabia pagan god. Uh, let's see here. It says Yahweh worship bounced back stronger than ever. Uh, in the time, the qualities were assimilated into Yahweh, who became known as El Shaddai, a title as God is Almighty. Dutch historian of religion. Let's see here. It says from polytheism to monotheism. All right, let's read the beginning. It says, like ancient Near East myths from the same period, the earliest biblical literature describes Yahweh as possessing the particular as opposed to general attributes. He is represented as a storm god. That means Yahweh was a pagan god who marches into battle alongside warriors and plans to defend Israel from enemies. This warrior-like alliteration of Yahweh may explain the brutal and violent behavior he exhibits in the Old Testament, which is a far cry from the deity we find in Christ. From polytheism to monotheism. When nation states first emerged in the Levant in the late Iron Age, El's vassals were prompted in their respective mythological hierarchies. Moab, because Moab was originally assigned to him by El, who were gods of Ammonites and Edomites, respectively. Yahweh, as mentioned, became the chief god of Israel. So it looks like Yahweh was stolen from the Levant, which is modern day Syria, Palestine, Iraq, or Syria, Palestine, and Lebanon during the Iron Age. So this is what I'm saying. There's a lot of Yahweh was definitely not the name of the God of Abraham. He was a pagan god that the Israelites took from Canaanites or Midianites. Within this polytheistic religion, Yahweh was but one of the many deities formed under the figure of El. So my point is, this is Yahweh. You want to see what Yahweh is. You want to see who Yahweh really is. This is Yahweh. Yahweh was always seen as a pagan god, according to biblical scholars, and the Israelites just took that pagan name and put it in their scriptures. And well, Yahweh first appears in the book of Exodus. or God's name becomes Yahweh. It wasn't always Yahweh to begin with. God's name morphed into, or it evolved into, Yahweh. So again, Yahweh is not the name of the God of Abraham. If anything, the God of Abraham's name is El or Elohim. It's not Yahweh. So there's a reason why the Quran, Islam, the Hadith, the Prophet Muhammad, etc., don't mention the name Yahweh, because that's a pagan god's name. That's not the name of the God of Abraham. Uh, so that's the reason why Islam or the Prophet Muhammad never mentioned that name, because it's not the name of God to begin with. That's a pagan god that the Israelites stole or plagiarized off ancient Canaan or ancient Median pagan sources. So this refutes the whole Yahweh claim. I know I made many videos about this, but I found this really good website explaining the origins of Yahweh. So I just thought I would share here. And another thing is, Jesus never says Yahweh in the New Testament. So even Jesus didn't think Yahweh was the name of God. In the Greek New Testament, or in the New Testament itself, the Jesus' disciples never said Yahweh. Hell, Paul never even said Yahweh, and we all know he's a false disciple, or he's a false apostle. So even that false apostle Paul never mentioned the name Yahweh. So it's so it's absolutely amazing that the New Testament itself doesn't say, or Jesus in the New Testament doesn't say Yahweh. So this, hopefully this refutes the whole Yahweh nonsense that the critics of Islam keep bringing up. Stay tuned, more videos coming up.